We are super excited. Okay, I'm super excited about this soul session. And I'm super excited about this soul session because I remember the first one and I absolutely adore Cleopatra. So we want to welcome you to, I want to say our 40th annual, but it's not. I don't know how long have we been doing the soul sessions, Jesse?
2017.
Okay.
So almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years. Well, so our 6th annual because it's a new year. So our first soul session of 2023, and we are very, very, very excited because she's homegrown. She's one of ours. To introduce you to Cleopatra Williams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of history here. She is a native Houstonian. She began dancing at the tender age of 3. 2 years later, she won a scholarship to study at Margot Marshall's City Ballet of Houston. She was accepted at the highest levels of Houston High School for Performing and Visual Arts and to the Houston Ballet Academy, where she trained for 2 years before entering their company training program. At 18 years of age, that was just 2 years ago, right? She joined the Houston Ballet and would go on to perform and tour with the company until 2006. She has had the pleasure of performing with the Russians Bolshoi Theater and London Sadler Wells Theater. She is also the first and only African-American ballerina to perform the role of Clara in Ben Stevenson's production of The Nutcracker. She performed the coveted lead role for the classic ballet every year until her retirement. But why we have her now in this one is because she has just graduated from UH College of Nursing with her BSN and has a job lined up with Texas Children's Hospital with the dreams, which we fully support, of building her own birthing center. So we are looking forward to seeing what this conversation, where it goes.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, I'm Jesse Jennings, and you have met Cleopatra Williams. And when Lisa says you're one of our own, that means you're in our hearts and you're in our center. And of course, it would be wonderful and very self-serving to say that when you came to Creative Life, you had no clue what you wanted to do with your life. But that's not the case. You were a hugely accomplished individual when we first met you, and you have set off in this new direction since, which you talked about back in 2019 when you took Heartfelt Living and presented the amazing PowerPoint production that you did, which we're going to see here in a little bit. And then you and I did a soul session together, which was one of the first that we video recorded. And I remember your mother was there in the front row, and that was in May of 2019. When we talked, probably 75% of the time was talking about your career in dance. And then we moved in the last little bit to this dream that you have that you're going to share with us tonight. I'm going to get out of the way and let you do most of the talking. But I have to say, you are an amazing role model for people everywhere, men, women, children, anyone who has a dream, who goes to the effort that you did to be the ballet dancer that you were, the incredible physical exertion and mental practice that you had to go through. And then when a lot of people would retire and have that career behind them and look back fondly on that, you plunged headlong into so much more work.
Right.
Because of this passion that you have. And my God, we are so in awe of you, all of us at Creative Life who know you and who know your story. And so tell us this dream that you have.
Right. Well, the dream that I have, well, first it came from, I'll say this, after dancing from pretty much for 23 years, the first 23 years of my life, right? From the time I was 3 till I was 26. I got into teaching dance after traveling to New York, going to school in New York, coming back to Houston. I did something in New York that I hated. That was very good because it taught me that I wasn't someone that could just make money, try to work just making money. That's what I learned from that experience. One, I can't do something that is just about generating income. I have to be passionate about what I do. Otherwise, I will be depressed and unhappy and not feel purpose, right? So there has to be a purpose. I also learned whatever I needed to do needed to be connected to spirituality. So I literally, like, I came back to Houston. I taught dance for the last 8 years. That was really helpful. I went through a healing of coming to dance in a very healing way, because it can be a very hard, ballet can be a very hard art, very critical art. And so teaching kids was a lot of inner work that had to be done of self-healing as I taught them, and I didn't want to pass on my trauma to them. And as I was doing that, then I started feeling like, man, there's still something. Universe was telling me there's more. This is not where you end. This is not your last career as being a dance teacher. So I'm like, okay, what is it? And that was a very hard time for me, because imagine, since you're 5, you know what you want to do, right? And then I have this space of not knowing. So it's very spiritual work to ask universe, what is it that I'm supposed to do? I'm listening, but also not having the full answers. One day, my answer was, I know it needs to be spiritual, because I was doing a lot of spiritual work. I was listening to Louise Hay, which is how I found you guys, right? And I'm like, okay, it needs to be spiritual. I literally went on to Google and looked up spiritual jobs. And I printed them all out, and I cut them up, and I laid them all in front of me. And I saw a bunch of different things, but what kept coming out to me was doula midwife. And I, as a little kid, I loved watching TLC's A Baby Story. So as a little kid, and I'd loved pregnant women and knew I wanted to have babies one day, and was just always fascinated by birth. Then I started hearing about the statistics facing Black women, and it became very big on the news. I was very sad to hear that, although it was the first time I was hearing it, it had been going on for decades. I became very angry, especially as I spoke to my aunts, and their stories were not so great. My mom, on the other hand, had a wonderful experience, but she also had a Black male OBGYN, right? So I understand why now. Whereas my aunties didn't have that, and they had horrible experiences. And so my anger led me to become a doula. My first birth as a doula, I saw what the midwife was doing, and I was like, I want to do what she's doing. I was so inspired. She was a badass, for lack of better words. She could sew this woman up, but then she's dressed just like you and me, having a very down-to-earth conversation, very reassuring of this woman, but then able to do the medical science part of making sure that this woman and her baby were safe. And that was so appealing to me. And I also had a midwife tell me, as a doula, there's only so much you can do. If a doctor wants to cut on a woman, he's going to cut on a woman. And there's some truth and some false to that, because a woman can advocate for herself, but if she doesn't know much and she doesn't have a woman advocating for her, she most likely will do what the doctor tells her to do. So yeah, I became fascinated with the science aspect, and I decided I want to be a midwife. And I decided to become a nurse midwife because I want to be able to help women in the hospital, at home, and in birth centers, wherever they are, wherever Black women are, I want to be able to help them. And that's also the idea of building a birth center, is having my own, where women of all economical statuses can be seen.
Wow. I was just reading the other day about the Doula of Color initiative in St. Louis. Yeah, that is fantastic, what they're doing there. A question I have for you. Well, I was going to hold this until you shared some material, but I was thinking about the Medicaid situation, right, and the debt ceiling that's being argued in Congress right now, and the impact that could conceivably have on state Medicaid funding.
Right. And it's not just a federal issue, it's really a state issue, because it's different in every state, right? And that's also just like how midwives practice as well. But in Texas, as I've worked with different midwives and birth centers, they've showed to me just how, for whatever reason, Texas legislature has created this notion that we only need to give Medicare to hospitals. Right? And the job as health providers, as midwives, as doulas, is to show the evidence that midwifery care creates a safer environment in a lot of ways for women of color and poorer women, because midwives take more time with their patients than, say, the OBGYN that's going to see the patient for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They're building a relationship that doesn't look the same in the hospital field. And so options, we want our women to have options. If I can afford to have the birth that a rich woman can afford, I should still have the option if I want to have, and I'm a healthy woman, right, barring, I should be able to have an option of a hospital birth. I should be able to have the option of a birth center birth. I should be able to have the option of having my baby at home, right? And I should be able to avoid it, up to afford it. And believe it or not, it costs less. So like, it makes sense for the state and for federal funds to be given to midwives, because it costs less to have a birth center birth and a home birth than it does a hospital birth. So it just really doesn't make any sense, other than a lack of education on their part, on legislators' parts.
Yeah. Isn't there a move now too, where people are receiving general medical care at home that used to be offered in hospitals? I don't know if this is in Texas, but rather than putting somebody in an environment that's potentially hazardous because of disease and bacteria and so on, they're not doing surgery, but they're doing a convalescent care and stuff at home that would be normally hospital offered.
And I feel like that was probably happening before COVID, but I feel like with COVID, telehealth medicine, home health medicine has only skyrocketed, trying to, just lower, because hospital costs, it just continues to get higher and higher and higher. If you don't have to have people there, I don't see why we should, for the exact reasons that you explained, as well as costs, right? But I think when it comes to birth, and this is something that I think a lot of us in the westernized American system don't really understand. In hospitals, we don't treat birth as the natural process that it is. Right? And so when you don't treat something, when you treat something in the way that it's an illness, that something is going to go wrong, well, guess what? Something is more likely to go wrong, because you're already looking at it in the wrong way, and you're freaking out about every little thing. And in actuality, they don't freak out about the right things. Right? So when a mom is complaining that she doesn't feel her legs, this just happened the past couple of weeks, a mother lost her life. She was telling nurses, I can't feel my legs. And they told her that they didn't want to call the doctor, because they didn't want the doctor to be upset with them for calling them late in the middle of the night. And she lost her life. So there's a lot of backwardness in birth, because birth is such a natural thing and it's such a vulnerable time for mothers. They need an atmosphere that understands that birth is natural, understands that that women's bodies are made to do this, but is there to listen when the mother says something is not right. So we're there to protect and be gatekeepers. And I guess that's what I love about the midwifery role in birth. It's this honoring of the process of birth, that it's a natural thing, that a woman knows, her body knows what to do, and that she knows her body better than we do. Right? And she knows her baby, and she's going through this process, and it's our job to support her. And so the Western medical complex can get that situation wrong a lot, because they're so used to eradicating disease. And so it's not always the best fit. And that's why I think that we really need to get to where we put midwives and natural birthers up here when it comes to natural birth and for healthy women. And when it comes to women that have, maybe they have something that diabetes or preeclampsia, something that puts them at a higher risk, yes, we have the tools that we need to help them in case something goes wrong, but we're still operating from a mind that that birth is natural. We're just there to protect them and care for them if this disease process takes over, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Would you say this is similar in a way to the other end of life with hospice care, where death is being sort of unpathologized and it's being seen as a natural state, that not everyone becomes a mother, but everyone leaves the planet under some condition. And when there's a predictable, foreseen situation unfolding of long-term illness and so on, that there's a mental health aspect to it and an emotional care aspect to it, as well as the medical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you may know, who, you're a music head over there. Do you know who Erykah Badu is?
Yeah, sure.
So Erykah Badu, besides being a fantastic musician, an herbalist, a natural healer, she's also a birth doula and a death doula, right? So she ushers life in and she also ushers it out, right? And the whole idea of holding space, right? And I really believe that that's a big job as birth workers, is to hold space. And I don't think that that's something that doctors, I know that they're not taught to do that. I know that nurses aren't really taught to do that. And so, when I watch, kind of obsessed with it, I guess that's why I love it. I watch a lot of live births on social media because I love it. The midwives that just kind of sit back and let a woman catch her own baby. Like, that's the type of, you know what I'm saying? I'm holding space for mom and baby in case something goes wrong. And yes, I very much think that when it comes to death, it's the same. It's you're holding space for that person on that journey. And going back to our Western society, I believe in a lot of other cultures that are a bit more, I guess, native still. They see birth as an everyday. They see their family members die as an everyday part of life. We don't see that. Those things for us as Westerners are kind of hidden, right? We go off and we have our babies. When someone dies, someone else takes care of the body for us. Or there are whole villages where they prepare their loved one's body, right? Children are there watching their loved one be prepared after death, or children are there possibly as they watch their mother or someone else give birth. And that's becoming more common, where we bring family in to see a birth happen. But I think that whole mentality that these are all, like you said, we're all going to be born, we're all going to die, right? That these are natural things that occur. I think the more we see those things, maybe the more we handle them differently, because they're sacred, we honor them. We're also not as afraid of them because they're part of our everyday living. I think that would help us out if we saw it more and more.
Absolutely. And it, being a midwife, I suppose, is probably one of the oldest jobs on earth.
Absolutely.
And yeah, as you say, in the Western culture, and also with the Western religious trappings around around life and death and the sanitization of things. There was a famous book came out, I think in the 60s, called The American Way of Death, about the funeral industry. And not to confine the conversation to that end of life, but it was, as you say, the body's dressed up and it's pretty and it's this, and there's no sense of really what's happening here. It's all kind of a euphemism, whereas birth is messy and in stages of life, puberty's messy. I mean, every stage we go through is kind of chaotic, and it has that beauty of that chaos, because we don't know. There are no two births the same. There are no two experiences of life the same, and we're making it up as we go along. Let me ask you, in your nursing school training, what did you learn about the medical profession that you didn't know before, particularly that stands out in terms of its relationship to the birth? Yeah.
What I will say, something I was surprised about in a good way, were some things that I had learned in the doula setting. Like, for instance, I'm sure you've seen in the movies how they would cut the cord immediately, right? Well, practice and science has shown us that it's better to allow the cord to pulsate as long as it does, because baby is receiving that last blood from mom until it isn't anymore, right? So I was very surprised and happy to learn that they're practicing that in hospitals, that they're allowing that cord to just do what it does, and then afterwards, about a minute or two, they'll cut it. So I was happily surprised to see that there were some natural aspects, that episiotomies are less practiced, the cutting of the mother's perineum in case we needed to help get baby out. Studies have shown that causes worse tears, right? And I had learned that in my studying as a doula, but I was very happy to see that it wasn't practiced. Now, in my clinical rotations, I did see some things that were hard to see. I saw a 17-year-old have her placenta being pulled out. You're not supposed to do that. And sure enough, the thing that can be caused by doing that, it happened to her. So when you pull out the placenta, you're supposed to let it, and I'll go on my tyrant of, this is why birth isn't always good in hospital, because it's natural process that's supposed to happen on it. You're kind of just waiting around sometimes, right? You're waiting for baby to come. I remember my first birth, watching the midwife just sitting there, and I'm like, why is she just sitting there? I've been pushing on this woman's hip. I've been massaging her, doing all this. I was like, the midwife just saying, oh, because nothing is happening until this baby's ready to come. And I think that's a lot of the hard stuff for hospitals, is they're not very good with just waiting around, right? It doesn't fit into the notion of, we got to get people in, get them out, right? And that's where we mess up. And so my whole point of saying that, they were pulling this placenta out of this young woman, and they got retained placenta inside of her, right? We want that whole placenta to come out without parts of it being left inside of her uterus. Otherwise, it can cause hemorrhage. And that's what was happening. So they had to call doctors in to scrape out her uterus, all because they didn't want to wait and let their body do what it was going to do. And so that was really hard for me to watch, because I was the student nurse. I knew better. I'm watching it like, what are they doing? But I can't say anything technically, right? And I'm looking at the nurse who was I'm following her for the day. And strangely enough, I knew she wanted to be a midwife too. We connected that way because, and I won't say the hospital, but I later on asked her, how common is that? She said, it's very common. They're so eager to just be doing something that they don't let the woman's body do what it's supposed to do. And then you create this problem that wouldn't have never been there. And so, yeah, I see these things that seem like common sense and seem like all we have to do is read a little bit. Sometimes just like science takes over, and it doesn't seem like there's a real effort to look outside at the people that have been doing it for years. You said midwifery was the oldest profession, and what obstetrics has done starting in the 50s is it's taken away the legitimacy of Native midwives, right? We've said, right? So we don't want to certify them in anything. We don't want to give them licensure. And then you block out all this knowledge that they have, and you say, oh, we're smarter because we've gone to university. But not only is that not true, there's so much information that you're not willing to take in to be better for your patients. So I guess I saw some of that, where I knew about more of a naturalistic way of doing things, and with my own eyes, I saw them doing things that weren't very healthy and that were dangerous. But then I saw, like I mentioned earlier, I saw them doing some things that I was, okay, I didn't expect you guys to do that. So I saw a little bit of both.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was born actually in the 50s, and I was told that when I was born, they whisked me away and put me in a tank or something, cleaned me up. And eventually I was handed back to my mother later that day or the next day or whatever. And yet with animals, I've read where a mother cat will lick the placenta off the kitten, and And in so doing, she basically boots up its neural network.
Right.
There's the power of touch, the
Bonding.
power.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I will say that that's a practice that they've changed. They no longer take babies away from their moms right away, unless something is direly wrong and baby needs to be cared for by the NICU team. They call it the golden hour now. Right after baby comes out, for an hour, baby should be on mom's chest to self-regulate their temperature. They should be, covered and rubbed, and, if they want to, breastfed, but that's the golden hour. You don't remove baby from mom. That's a no-no. So I'll give them that. It's like, so it's progressing. It's progressing, right? We need people to continue to push that, to continue the science, but also like, do the science. Oh, we've been seeing that midwives are leaving, or the cohorts pulsate. What's the science behind that? And usually they do the science and they see, oh, there's something behind this. Oh, babies do better when they're on mama's chest and they're not separated from mom. The science usually proves that these more natural ways of doing things are better. Time and time again. It's unfortunate that we sometimes need science to show that the natural way is the best way, but whatever it takes, we need to continue to push those things.
It's exciting to me having a sort of a profound nostalgia for pre-civilization. To see that in so many areas the science circles back to how it was done in so-called primitive times, in so-called pre-civilized cultures. There's like an intuitive awareness that we have that's gotten submerged under money and power. But
it makes sense though, right? Because how else would we have survived for so long? Right. That's why we're able to have done so well. We're living longer and longer, right? But we're here because of what our ancestors did, what they figured out, their creativity, their understanding. But sometimes we gotta take away all of the stuff that we put on top, just like you said, and get back to our basics, right? But yeah, money can definitely confuse us a lot.
Yeah. So you created a policy brief.
I did. So in nursing school, and I love school, so I think that helps. I made a promise to myself. So we had different classes. A lot of our, besides our science classes, our clinical classes, we actually had like some policy ethic classes. And, the idea is, as nurses, laws, not only do you have to know the law to be a nurse that doesn't do something that's illegal, but you also have to know the law because we should be involved in these things that I'm talking about that matter to me, right? I shouldn't just be doing this profession. I should be actually working with my state members, my state council members, the federal, to change these laws, because the laws affect what happens to our patients. So in my policy and ethics class, we had to write a policy brief, like we were speaking to one of our representatives, our state representatives. And I decided that every single project I did was going to be towards midwifery. I was going to use every opportunity to help me gain more knowledge on what it is that I wanted to do. And so let me just share it with you. My policy brief. Can you guys see it okay?
There it is.
Awesome. It's called the Babies Act. An expansion of the birth center model will save lives and government spending. So the idea of this is that the Babies Act was made to, get Congress to expand Medicaid for all women, so that they could have births not just at the hospital. And just so when you make these policy briefs, you just want to list out some facts for whoever's reading it. I wrote mine for Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee and Kay Granger. And I just point out some facts for them. For instance, that the preterm rate for Black Texan women was 41% higher than that of any other race. And 20% of Texan women, they attend less than half of the recommended number of prenatal visits, compared to 14.9% nationally. So we know that prenatal visits are so important, right? That way you can catch anything that's going on with mom, anything that's going on with baby, as early as possible. And so when 20% of Texan women aren't getting their prenatals, that's something to be concerned about, because it definitely impacts the outcome of their births, right? If we know early that baby could be born preterm, we can do things to stop that from happening. And so there was a study called the Strong Start program that followed midwifery care programs, and it showed that births that occurred at birth centers had higher birth outcomes, so less preterm births, less maternal deaths. However, Medicaid's lack of equitable reimbursement and incentive structures, they leave freestanding birth centers economically unable to provide this superior care to Medicaid enrollees. So Medicaid is more likely to pay the doctors of hospitals the rates that they should receive, but they're not likely to do that for birth centers. And that's really sad, because if we know that birth centers are more likely to provide the one-on-one care, the more like longer times to speak with the mom, to teach her. There's a lot that goes into teaching a mom what she needs to know to eat the right way, to rest, how she can sleep. So taking that time, we want to make sure that midwives are paid what they can so that they can keep their businesses going and they can care for these patients in the way that they should. So yeah, I'm just giving stats about socially and economically vulnerable populations are more likely to experience poor health outcomes. We know that health outcomes, we know that. And Medicaid enrollees do not have the same access to maternity care, birth setting options, or providers as their privately insured counterparts. So I feel like no matter how much money you make, you should have the same option as to where you want to give birth, whether it's a birth center, a hospital, or at home. And the thing is, as you see in this last part right now, it actually saves money. So Medicaid's average total costs, our charges for vaginal births were $29K and $50K for cesarean births, and Medicaid payments were $9,000 for vaginal births and $13,000 for cesarean births. However, it only costs $4,000 to $7,000 to have a birth at a birth center. So it would save like government so much money if you actually you supported these midwifery birth centers. I think what's happening is there's a lack of education and there's a lack of incentive for them to do this, just because it's like we just trust hospitals. And so I think what we are having, we're getting a lot of knowledgeable midwives, knowledgeable doulas sitting in front of our lawmakers and really showing them the facts, right? And as we see more and more women of color die in our hospitals, which I think the news doesn't report as much as they do, those that pass in birth centers and homes, hopefully we can kind of change the narrative that it's really helpful for healthy for women to have births outside of the hospital. So yeah, that's really what this document is. It's just stating my case. And I would love to like present this in person one day. That's like my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I have 3 questions about that.
Yes.
The first is, let's see if I can remember them because I didn't write them down. The first is the 20% of women in Texas who miss half or more of their prenatal appointments a function of strictly cash money? Or is it also transportation related? Is it also work related, caring for other children in the home? So it's
right. It's
all
of
these
that.
different factors.
It's all of that. And so very much like, so I had to do a project at school and it wasn't on birth, but it was about, we did it on a research project on cancer patients, and now cancer patients have something called cancer navigators. And so these navigators would help them figure out the process, right? They would say, okay, now we're going to set up this appointment because you need this, because it can be daunting when you get something like a cancer prognosis. Well, what do I do, right? You're probably dealing with the inner turmoil of just the fact that I have cancer. So having someone there to walk you through the process, it showed that those people were more likely to succeed in all of their appointments, right? Because they had someone walking them through. Well, I would think having a baby, whether it's your first or say you've got 2 or 3 at home, is a lot, right? And even if you don't have, so yeah, it's not just the money aspect. It's like, can I make it there? Am I working? Right? So I kind of akin a midwife or a doula to that person that is walking you through that process. And right, and that's more likely to happen with the people who are solely geared towards birth than say a big hospital that might not feel like they have the resources to walk this person through every single visit. But yeah, it's all of those things. And that's why the birth center that I absolutely adore and hope to build my birth center after their model, they have women come off the streets who say are drug addicts, and they find out they're pregnant, may not have a car, may not have Medicare, but they're going to walk them through, okay, we're going to find you transportation. We're going to make sure you have the paperwork filled out that you need. All you have to worry about is growing a healthy baby. That's your only job. And so I do think for women of certain socioeconomic brackets, they need that assistance to where that's all they have to worry about is eating the right foods, is getting the right the correct rest and whatever, or exercise, and they have someone walking them through the process. This is when your appointment is. Do you need a ride there? Can you make it at this time? Are you working? Do you need someone to watch the kids? It becomes more of a village than a hospital taking care.
I want to introduce you to Rita Wiltz at some point. She was a previous interviewee conversationalist on the Soul Session. She's a community activist out here in Tamina.
Okay.
And she's an advocate for all on so many different levels. If you need food stamps, she'll walk you through it. If you need your taxes done, she'll walk you through it. She or somebody who works with her, they take you by the hand, they navigate the social system, social safety net system, Okay, question number 2 was, if a woman is not Medicaid eligible, if a woman has private insurance, let's say, will that cover a birthing center?
No. This is how you can possibly get reimbursed. Sometimes they'll reimburse all of it. Sometimes they'll just do it partially. Some insurance may not at all. So it just depends on what your insurance says. So yeah, typically you can get reimbursed, possibly not all of it, possibly some of it. And then it's still less. It's still between that 4,000, 5,000 amount. And I think that's the part that just baffles me when I think about how much women pay for hospital births. And it totally makes sense if I know, hey, it makes sense if I decide that's what I want. I never want women to feel like I'm bad. I'm saying, no, you shouldn't get a hospital birth, right? It's whatever is right for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But options, that's all I ask for. And if I know that there's an option that costs considerably less and it is in alignment with what I really want for myself, that should be something that is offered to me. And so going back to your question, yeah, women that have private insurance, they can absolutely get reimbursed. It's just a process, and sometimes not an easy process.
Yeah, my reason for asking that is so it's like in the view of the insurers, the Blue Cross and Blue Shields and stuff, it's a legitimate practice. Like for years, chiropractic wasn't covered by insurance, and they had to fight for it. And Christian Science practitioners who were full-time had to fight for it. And so it's like there's a precedent there that it's a legitimate medical / health related cost to where it should be. I mean, we know it should be, but I'm just saying that there's a precedent set where Medicaid should cover it. The third question I had was kind of more philosophical, and maybe it's not so much a question, but seeing someone like yourself who has moved from being a doula to being a nurse midwife and having the medical training, you and others like you, your classmates who are of a similar mind, and the nurse that you spoke of at the hospital who was interested in being a doula, that's going to drive the conversation, isn't it, into a way where birthing centers are seen as an adjunct medical facility, it would seem to me, in the way that hospices are, in the way that different things that orbit medical needs that people have that are outside of the mainstream of the medical
freeze.
center facilities. So that's exciting, is to see that. It's like, I don't know,
Yes.
Cleo, it's kind of like a guy like me gets up on Sundays and talks about your mind can heal and all of this sort of thing. And people are like, yeah, okay, and they listen and maybe they try it. And then a Deepak Chopra comes along, who's an MD. And he says, okay, I have clinical, or John
Proof.
Kabat-Zinn or Joan Borysenko or any of these other MDs, and they'll say, well, yeah, I have clinical trials and I have the evidence of this to see. And all of a sudden,
Right.
the world at large is lit up with it.
Right. Well, and I think that's why I was saying it's so important that we get in front of these legislators with these facts. What's kind of funny is it's ironic to me that, going back to what you say about the full circle, is that we're showing you're having to prove facts to them of like what existed before obstetrics, which we already know was working, right? All the midwifery model is allowing a mom to birth the way that she wants to birth in a safe environment. That is what has been going on, hopefully for most, since the beginning of time. And it's kind of crazy that we're still holding obstetrics up here and now having to prove to those in power that the thing that's been working forever is working the best. But yeah, so that's my goal as a nurse that's working now for Texas Children's, and I want to build my own birth center, is I'm in the system. I'm familiar with the system. Yeah. I know how the system works, but I have the heart and the mind for this over here. Can I meld you together? And a lot of midwives do. A lot of midwives have practicing privileges in hospitals. So that's why I wanted to go to Texas Children, is because they have the women's pavilion where they already have the midwives. So as a nurse, I get to work along midwives and I get to work along OBGYNs. And so when I decide to eventually create my own thing, I hope that these people that I've been working with in the hospital system will see my clients and treat my clients in the best way. And I hope to not just do that for my birth center, but all of the birth centers. But if I'm being quite honest, Jesse, I'll be trying to fight a David and Goliath fight, because as a new nurse coming in, I witnessed other nurses speak so badly about doulas, speak so badly about moms who want to birth naturally. And I don't know if you heard it, but about a month ago or a few weeks ago, 4 nurses in Atlanta were fired for posting a video on TikTok where they were speaking very negatively about their patients. And I will say, in my own experience, doing my capstone at a hospital, I witnessed nurses complaining about moms who wanted to have natural births or moms who were screaming too much for them. And so I say all of that to say it will be a hard fight, because not everyone that's in this industry is in it for the right reasons. Right? To me, if you have an issue with a woman that wants to give birth naturally and a woman that's screaming because she's in pain, you're in the wrong business. And so it will be an everyday fight of me supporting my clients, advocating for my clients, and trying to find the right way to navigate in a system that doesn't always treat laboring mothers the way that they should. And I knew that before I got into it. I knew that I was this hippie-loving girl who was going to enter the system that doesn't treat women the way that I wanted to. And I solely was going into it to have as much knowledge and build as many relationships as possible to help them. And I knew that I was going to see some things that really upset me. And I did. But at the same time, it didn't stop me from going the course, and it only made me more sure of my role to constantly advocate for my mothers and to call other people out when they're not behaving, servicing, caring for these women with the respectful way, in the respectful way that they should. So yes, to go back to your question, as much like that is the goal for birth centers and midwives and hospitals to work together, but I'd be lying if I said that I see it becoming that way that it should in a short amount of time, if at all. Just because of what I've seen. And so it's the people, it's the few people that are there for the right reasons, continuing to do the work for each mom that they come across. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. So in a birth center, you'll be able to surround yourself with positive,
Like-minded,
shall we
yes.
call it positive energy, you know, where
Yes.
there's not all these conflicting ideologies of this.
Right.
And yeah, it seems to me in the whole medical profession, or well, I guess it really any profession, the old ways returning are give some people heartburn, because it's, you know, it's taking down a power structure. It's the financial aspect of it. People feel threatened. The career goals and aspirations of surgeons and so on, you know, it's like, oh, if this can be healed through prayer, or this can be healed through a natural approach, how are we gonna sustain our lifestyle?
Right.
And,
Right.
you know,
That also too, think about the natural approach of medicine. It's a time intensive one, right? It's a journey. And so and can be, I think, in more ways, more work. And so sometimes, like, the thing that is not quick, more work, not easy, it's no fun to this machine, this business that hospital is, right? And so natural medicine, birth, holistic hospice, all of these things, like, they have like a process and the time that you don't control, you know, where you're going through a journey. And sometimes that hospital industry is just not built for that, you know? And so like I said, I think it comes to people, it comes down to workers in the field who are really passionate about creating an experience for the people that they're serving, and bucking the system sometimes, you know?
one last question. I'm looking at the time here. One last question, because definitely want to see the PowerPoint that you created. Do you use, and will you be using, things like guided visualization, guided imagery, and you know, those kind of metaphysical things?
So maybe not in the hospital.
Yeah.
You know,
Granted.
but the nurse. But you know, it was the perfect timing of coming into figuring out what I wanted to do, and coming to creative life, right? Because the two worlds of what I wanted to do and what I was connecting with were really aligning. And you know, when I first had my idea, like, I wanted to be a midwife and a minister. And of course, this whole journey is taking me down the midwife route. And maybe when I'm older, I still might want to be a minister, but I definitely felt like, okay, if we can, because the science that you're going to see in my PowerPoint shows that African Americans, why are women so much more likely to die, Black women in America in birth? Well, we're more likely to have serious medical issues, whether it be preeclampsia, gestational diabetes. A lot of that comes from not eating the right way, being in poor, right, socioeconomic. But it's not even just that, because Beyonce and Serena also have experienced really hard births where they almost died. It's stress. The idea that it's stressful to not only be a woman in America, but to be a Black woman in America. And that generational stress changes your body to where when you add a baby to it, you're more likely to have a disease, right? It's crazy science to me that a woman from Africa can come here and her body won't act the same way because she's a first generation African here, but her daughter will be experiencing the same things, the same possibilities of having disease and pregnancy as me, just from living in America as a Black woman, right? So that kind of blows my mind. And then you put on top of that the systemic racism in the hospital, where you're telling them something is wrong and they're not listening to you. All of that creates this environment where something can go wrong. And so I say all of that to say it's very important that I teach women, okay, this is the possibility. What can we do? We can meditate, We can pray, right? So whatever is calming my nerves, calming my body, eating well. What are my thoughts? What are my affirmations? Everything that I can do to make me my healthiest self. And of course, creating knowledge about this birth experience. So I am not as afraid when I go there, right? I've picked my right doctor, but how can I remove fear from the process for me? So yeah, hypnobirthing is a very large thing, where hypnobirthing is you learn how to put yourself in this hypnotic state so that a natural birth is something that you can do. So yes, very much when I create my own birthing center, I would love to offer women the aspect of affirmations, of prayer, of knowingness, and then also psychology, because postpartum depression is a real thing, and poor women are more likely to be depressed, or so yeah, the mental aspect of it when you're facing something that you're up against you, that shows that these are your stats. A lot of fear is what's going on for Black women. So giving them tools, besides creating a safe environment, giving them tools to be safe in and feel secure within, I think is huge, and creates a better outcome for both baby and mom.
That is just brilliant. That is just brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, so let me show you this PowerPoint, and I haven't looked at it for a while, but it's a lot of the things that I just said. Let me start here at the beginning. So it's called, because I was in my heartfelt living class, and it's just called Healing Black Babies and Mothers, Healing Black Mothers and Babies. And so these stats here about Black women being 3 to 4 times more likely to die in childbirth have actually gone up to, I believe, 4 or 6, as well as Black infants. They're more likely to die, more than twice likely to die than their white counterparts. Black women, pregnant women, are more likely to experience low birth weights. And so this is where I mentioned that both Serena and Williams also experience almost dying during their birth. So it goes across classes. And then I just talk about the bias that exists in healthcare, not listening to mothers when they tell you that something is going wrong. That's the reoccurring issue of what's happening. Just something's going wrong. So there's this thought that Black women can tolerate pain more than white women. So when they're complaining, we don't really give it any second thought, which is ludicrous to me. And then that's how infections are missed, or hemorrhaging is missed, or blood clots are missed. And then one nation under stress. So stress equals a lack of control and uncertainty. And if you think about labor, you are completely vulnerable. So the Whitehall study showed that the lower your status, the worse your health tends to be. Health gives us a measure of how well we are doing as a society. African Americans have historically been in a state of chronic stress, and their life expectancy is 3.5 years less than their white counterparts. So creating a sense of security in that health field, or in the birth room, is really important for this mom. And so I just talk about some things. I would want to teach them mindfulness and meditation. Community and strong social relationships are important. So that's why Hispanics live longer than Blacks and whites, right? Because family is a huge important thing for them. Our stress hormones impair our ability to be empathetic, right? I believe that's maybe why nurses and doctors aren't as empathetic. They are constantly stressed out, and they need to be the most empathetic people. So what else do we got here? Oh, I love Bruce Lipton. He talks a lot about epidemiology and how that affects a baby being born, what the mom is experiencing while she's pregnant. If she's highly stressed, if she's, just experienced maybe domestic violence, baby's gonna experience that. That's gonna affect their cortisol levels. That's gonna affect how they interpret life when they come out on the other side. Low birth weight babies go on to develop health issues as adults. So it's not just an issue that is affecting baby right then and there. It can effectively affect them as adults, which is even more strain on our healthcare system. So healthy babies, healthy moms are less likely to be unhealthy as they grow older. What else? I say, though we can't personally get rid of societal, systemic, institutional, and structural racism, what can we do? Parents have a choice. They can carefully reprogram their limiting beliefs about life before bringing a child into the world. I think that's huge. I think I would love to be teaching that to kids or to teenagers or to young people before they decide to become parents, because it's a bit easier to do it before you have kids than afterwards. What else? People want to feel needed, wanted, and loved. Everyone does. I think a lot of people think sometimes, say for instance, someone that is a drug addict, that's pregnant, that person doesn't care about their baby. And that's not true. Every mom, addict, whatever, they want to have a healthy baby. And so that's why I think it's so important to create an environment that allows moms of all walks of life to feel safe and to have healthy babies, to grow healthy babies. We want to feel we belong to the universe in which we live, and we want to have something upon which to lavish our affection. Yeah. So then I would want to basically take the tenets that I learned at Creative Life and give that to moms on top of creating a healthy birth for them. And it wouldn't just be after birth, because it never is. It continues after that, right? Midwives and doulas, they continue to service their families even after the baby is born. It's not just after that labor, it continues. It's lifelong, it's a lifelong relationship. You know, I'm excited to deliver babies and be a part of that family for the rest of their lives.
Phenomenal presentation. Phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. And I think Lisa has questions or comments or something off of Facebook.
Okay, two. Awesome.
The first one is did you meet people who are focusing on, because you focus specifically on African American, the statistics, what about the other people of color like Hispanics, or did you meet people that were focusing on that, and are they similar?
So in as far as other races of color, so when I went to nursing school, to be clear, I wasn't focusing on anything, right? In nursing school, you see everybody. You just see whoever, you go to a hospital and you see everyone. It's my passion before I started nursing school to focus on women of color. So, but when you look at the data, you'll see that it's women of color, but Black women are disproportionately higher, right? So yes, the white women and actually, let's take a step back. Maternal mortality in America is worse than pretty much all the countries, right? So I want to say we're like 36 on the list. So even white women are dying more than white women in other countries in the world. Okay, so let's start there. White women are dying more than other countries in the world, in the US. And then you have women of color underneath them, right? And then Black women are less than all of the women of color, or more of all of the women of the color who are dying. But yeah, all women of color are dying disproportionately higher than white women in America. Yeah.
Question. I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a question about that. When you say that they're dying what's the word you use? Mortality,
maternal mortality.
Maternal mortality. Is that actually they're dying in the process of childbirth?
Not necessarily. You know, it's considered like it's like up to a year after childbirth that it's still considered maternal morbidity or mortality, right? So as long as once your child is 1, it's not considered so much relating to the death. But women will leave, and actually they have a higher chance when they're leaving the hospital after discharge. They get infections, right? That one of the ladies, I think Kira Johnson is her name, she had an infection. She came back. Something's not wrong. I think she was saying her stomach was, she was having cramps. And the right thing would have been, let's take her temperature. Let's draw her blood. They would have seen that she had an infection. Instead, they just sent her home. She was complaining to them. That's unacceptable. So no, it's not just Black. I believe why Black women are proportionately higher is that they're less likely to be listened to. I think that a Hispanic woman might be a little bit more likely, and you go up as you go up in color, right? I think that's what's happening.
Is it also the maternal mortality? Do those numbers take into account postpartum depression, like suicide, or domestic violence?
So, to be honest with you,
okay,
I don't think it does. It's related to the birth, whether it be hemorrhage, preeclampsia, an infection. Yeah, I think suicide is its own thing. I want to say.
Yeah, because when you were talking earlier about health challenges facing Black mothers, Black people generally. What came up for me along with that is food deserts, because this is something that we,
Absolutely.
you know, yeah, there's the stress, and there's the pre-existing medical conditions, and then there's the fact that if you
We're
want
not
something
eating
good
the
to
right
eat, you're
things.
not eating the right thing, because
Absolutely.
you'd have to
And
drive 10 miles to
that
get
has
it.
to
Yeah.
do with the low birth weight of babies. They're not
Yeah.
getting nutrition they need. They may be smoking, right? Oh, we froze a little bit. Okay, but yes.
Thanks, Cleo. Sorry to
All right,
interrupt.
Lisa.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Good question.
Lisa, please. What
Okay,
else
and
you
then
got for us?
the other question, and I've seen that statistic about, you know, for the developed nation, as we are one of the richest, the number of women that die, it's
It's
ridiculous.
insanity.
It is
It doesn't make
just
sense.
no. The other one was the question is, and you can take this however you want,
Mhm.
who is involved in a birthing center? Like, what are you looking at?
Who is involved in a birthing center, right? So when you go to a birthing center, it's ran by a midwife, right? So you're gonna see midwives in birthing centers. They may have some doulas there, but that's really a birthing center. You go there, you can have your baby there, and there's a midwife caring for you. And like the only drug that you might get is like the laughing gas that you get at the dentist, but you're not gonna be able to get an epidural, right? So if you want to say you didn't want to feel any pain, you're gonna go to the OBGYN at a doctor, and you can get an epidural, all the drugs you need. But you're pretty much gonna have a natural birth at a birth center with a midwife. The only difference is it's not at your home. And a lot of midwives, they offer both, which it would be my plan. I can come to your home, or you can have it in my birthing center.
What's the
set
difference
up like a
between
home.
a doula and a midwife?
Okay, hold on one second. I can answer your
sorry.
question, Jesse.
Sorry.
That's an easy question. But what did you say, Lisa?
Is our birthing centers set up like homes?
Yeah, in that they look like homes, right? So you can have your own suite, but it's still like a center. There might be two women having their babies at the same time in one room that has a bed, that has maybe either a pool, like a whirlpool, or a big tub, say in case you wanted to get in water. So you have like a suite. So it'd be like a house with different suites, and downstairs, say, might be like the office area. Yeah, it looks like a home. And so the difference between a midwife and a doula is pretty much, so a doula is there for emotional, and when I say physical, I mean like massaging, taking tension off of your back, all of those things physical, an advocate and education. So they deal with all the emotional stuff. The midwife is pretty much a doctor minus C-sections. A midwife can do everything a doctor can do except for cut on you, and they're not an anesthesiologist, and that they're not going to give you an epidural. But that's why I said they're badasses, right? They can do all the medical stuff, but they can wear their everyday home clothes, and they can talk to you like you and I are talking right now, which I don't know why. That just fascinates me. I think that's so cool.
Oh, that is excellent.
And I just want you to know that I think the biggest revelation that I have walked away with that I never considered is birthing is a natural process, but if you put it in the medical, if you put it in a hospital, they treat it like a disease. And
yeah. One of the first thing they do is they give you an IV. So you're gonna get an IV. They're gonna hook you up to monitors to monitor your baby and monitor your contractions. Can you go to the bathroom now? Can you walk around? Yeah, you can, but it's cumbersome. If you get an epidural, you're not going anywhere. You're just laying on your back. And guess what is one of the worst positions to push in sometimes? Laying on your back. You want to squat.
gravity.
Yeah, exactly.
Gravity.
Use gravity. So like there are a lot of things. So when I see women get epidurals and I watch their birth slow down, and then I watch, oh, well, now you need a cesarean, and there's like this snowball of taking you back and cutting on you because we didn't try to do it the natural way. So yeah, it's backwards in some ways. Now, and I say that, and I mean to say there's a lot of good that comes out of having birth in the hospital if you need it there. Right? But we want women to have options that work for them and their body. Just like every woman is different, their health is different, what they want to experience is different. We should be able to provide for them their options because they exist. They exist.
Wow.
Now, this relationship doesn't end tonight. We don't say bye-bye to Cleo and
Never.
you know, and off you go with your birth. We're gonna track you every step of the way with this and see how we can support you and getting information from you out into the world, and
Yes.
also hooking you up with other people that we've met in our meeting as we go along,
Mhm.
who can be valuable allies to you.
Yes, I would love that. You guys are family. I just had someone ask me not too long ago, who's your social support or your spiritual support? And I'm like, oh, that's my creative life family. And that feels absolutely so good to say and to know in my heart. I can't believe it. I think it's been like 4 or 5 years now, which is crazy. And you know, COVID has changed everything to where I don't get out as much, and nursing school has, but I'll be right back there. You guys are family. And we've lost 2 very amazing people in our creative life family in the last year or so that meant so much to me. And that just looking back on, I've known these people for such a short amount of time and they impacted me. I just you guys mean so much to me, so thank you for inviting me back.
Always and forever. Thank you, dear Cleo.
And
Anything
just
else
so
on
you know,
Facebook?
there's been a
Lisa?
lot of conversations about how wonderful this is, and that you may not be a minister, Cleo, but this is your ministry.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you guys. I love that. It
So
is.
yeah, there's a lot. And I just want to remind everybody that while this will live on the Facebook page, because we don't take it down, it is going to go to the YouTube page, and it will be under the Soul Session playlist. So it'll be easy to find if you want to watch it again.
Awesome. Yes, I want to share it.
Through those pages. And so yeah, there's a lot of good information that way they can pause.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
all right. Well,
Yeah.
how do we close this down? Because it was so fantastic.
I don't know. My mind is, I'm going to think of things, you know, once we're off of here. I'm like, wait, what about, you know, but you're there. You're there.
What we are going to say is thank you very much, Cleo.
Yes, thank you so much.
It was an honor. It was an honor to have you. This is definitely an issue that, you know, we wish you Godspeed, and we also we'll be there. We'll be there. Call us. We'll be there, you know. And we will get you in touch with Rita and be your social support always. And if people want more information, what I would suggest is they email info@creativelife.org. And then that way that we can send them what information that we have, and maybe, you know, set up some connections there.
Sounds good. I'm grateful.
Do you have a website, Cleo?
I do, but you know, right now it's not geared towards, well, I had 2 websites. It's not really geared towards what I'm doing right now. So I've been so crazy busy with nursing school. I built one, but I haven't really been using it. Haven't been back on there.
Okay.
So, and I don't even remember what the ad is, to be honest with you. But
when you get it, send it to us, and we'll put the
absolutely.
links on the Facebook, and we'll put the links in the
Sounds good. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna cut you guys off now.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Safe and happy
Thank
travels
you.
home, and we'll see you soon, Cleo.
Yes, I'll see you guys soon.
Lisa,
Bye.
thank you so much.
Lisa.